Barry, you're almost the last name on the credits for that film. So, what memories do you have of the film being made?
The film seemed to take a long time to make. I remember going into an editing suite at one point near Lime Street Station, doing some editing. I also remember going around different youth clubs and different things, doing the filming. But I was involved in lots of different ways as well in the project, so it was. I wasn't one of the actors, and I didn't really know the actors either at that point. But I was involved in lots of little bits. I did the scenery in there where I was just carrying a box, so there was a lot of carrying, and it was an interesting time really. It was quite sad really in some ways watching that film, just seeing all the kind of famous, the familiar faces and what have you. Some of whom aren't with us any longer, which is it's bittersweet,
Yeah, that's the effect of 35 years, as it turns out. Yeah, let's get down to the business. It was, I don't know, maybe you out there don't think so, but I think it was quite a remarkable project, quite unusual, quite unrepeatable. I've spent a lot of time working in beauty theatre, but I haven't seen anything like it ever since or before. We just did it the once, and it had history on its side, and that was it. But since you're nearest to me, Andy, we'll start off with you. Was it remarkable to you, and what was remarkable about it, if it was?
So I got involved with it because I'd been I was working in a hospital, before I started working in that one. In my spare time, I'd been in a band and I'd been putting gigs on. So one of the funny things about coming here tonight is over the road there's a gig that me and Pete and other people put on over the road. We put gigs on, and on the back of that I got this job as an arts officer, and I started in that building where they were doing the rehearsals on at the beginning of January, and I just remember it being absolutely freezing cold. It was just like that warehouse, near the Alfred, at the back. Haydock Street. And I had a table, I had a chair, and I had a telephone, and I had a notebook, and that was it. And one of the things I was sort of reflecting on, as it was going through, is that, I don't think I'd even touched a computer until, about 2 years after that in a work setting. So everything was done with a pad paper, which was done in you had to sign it in triplicate to get, like double-decker buses, or you wanted a replica gun, or, you wanted anything like that. We had to, and a landline, there was no, it was all done through sort of one landline. So yeah, I did, like Barry, I didn't know any of the actors. I didn't know, and I just remember at the start of it, watching it, thinking, oh my God, how are we going to make something, out of that? And then one of the other things I remembered early on in the rehearsals was that minibus which is in there, driving that round a lot of times. And I remember us getting picked up by the cops one night about 10 o'clock at night, coming away from a youth theatre. I was just so tired. I'd driven 16 kids in a minibus with no lights on for 5 miles, and just stuff like that going on. So, and I think the other thing about it was how much fun, we had doing it. It was just so much fun, and such a laugh, but as it got nearer, I just remember getting really tense nearer to the performance, because we thought, oh my God, how are we going to pull this off, So yeah, I was kind of behind the scenes, doing a lot of ringing round, doing organising, buying stuff in, and just trying to make sense of it all, really, which was hairy at times.
Do you want to say anything about risk assessment and health and safety?
Yeah, so there wasn't, the word risk assessment hadn't been invented, then. So some of the things, there was a bit, isn't there, like Dave Itchin crawling out of that, he shouldn't have been behind that cage thing, and he shouldn't have been climbing out of it.
In some ways he should have been.
Yeah, perhaps, yeah. and you know, just taking all of those people all around the town, you know, we planned for it, but we hadn't, you know, if anything had gone wrong, you know, we hadn't planned for that. We hadn't planned if it had rained, you know, there was nothing about, you know, there wasn't any insurance for anything, so it was all a bit like, you know, you wouldn't get away with it now.
Just about we did it then.
Yeah.
Pass on to Esther. Right, just pass on to Esther. Esther, memorability, what was your abiding memories of it?
As Andy said, it was just such a good laugh, and also the opportunities that watching it now, in retrospect, you just go, all those people, those kids in the schools that got involved in the dances and the playing little scenes out, and you go, you know, where would you get? I certainly, growing up, I wouldn't have thought I could have an opportunity like that, and how getting involved in the arts gave people involved in that project a springboard to do lots of things that they would never have done had it not been for that project. And also, something that I thought about watching it just then, Roger, is that you sort of preempted social media, if you like, because we created a buzz by creating a fictional town and characters and situations, scenarios that were going on a weekly basis. So we had like little things happening on Radio Merseyside, like Houghton's Turn and things that were happening. So we created this fictional place that made people believe it was true. So it was like the Twitter of its, of its, and I only got that watching it. Then I thought, oh my God, because it went on for such a long time, and it was quite a remarkable thing, I think. And we didn't think we could pull it off, but we were. You know, as Andy says about the health and safety, it was a new thing. Nobody had ever done it, so there was nobody to tell us that we couldn't do it. So when Roger would come up with these mental ideas of doing things, we'd all just go, Jesus Christ, but we did it, and it sort of felt good.
Barry, take it a minute. Let's inflect it slightly differently for you. Looking at the film then, sorry, the one we just see it, which you've seen, I know you've had a chance to see. What stands out for you about the nature of its specialness?
Well, I think for me, perhaps different than Esther and Andy's, that for me, I was kind of one of the participants in it rather than somebody that was orchestrating it. So it made a difference to me because it got me really kind of firmly involved in certain aspects of the arts in St Helens, in particular the music, but also visual arts too. And I think there was a lot of people like me who were kind of watching things from afar, wondering how to get into them, how do you become a part of this thing, and then for me it kind of opened that door, because you were remarkable people, you know, you are remarkable people. I told this story when I spoke to you a few months ago, and it brought a tear to your eye, but one of the things I always remember about you, Roger, was in the middle of that complexity, and it really was complex. You know, you saw that little scene with the buses and the kids from all the different schools, and the coordination of the story and how it's all being brought together. It was phenomenally complicated. I doubt anybody had a picture in their head that you had. But I remember one day, in the midst of this, one of the kids had lost his bike, and he came in and said, somebody's pinched my bike, and you immediately just stopped everything else and focused everybody just to go and find this kid's bike. And he'd only left it around the corner or something, he'd just forgotten where he put it, or his friend had borrowed it or something, but it was absolutely fine, there was nothing. But I remember that, it really stayed with me, that memory of the concern that you had for the little tiny details, you know, and the little things that you could have easily just said to somebody else, "Can you just come see if you can find that kid's bike?" But you didn't, and so I think, you know, I was lucky to meet yourself and Andy and Esther and other people, Dave and other people too. It was a remarkable project and it was a remarkable time. You know, I was quite lucky because it was a springboard for me. Like Esther said, you know, I didn't grow up in a particularly arty house, but I become a teacher. I went to university, and I don't think any of those things would have happened if I hadn't have had the experiences I had
Yeah,
in
me too.
this town, really.
We'll pass it back to us. No, we'll pick it up and move it along. There were things that happened because of it in St Helens, and there were things that happened because of it in your life, for example, in all of your lives, in all of our lives. What do you see as the things that came out of it, Esther? Because you stayed on doing work in St Helens as well, didn't you? I mean, at
I
that
did,
stage,
yeah, because out of that project came, like Stephanie Sims here, and she was the first sort of community arts drama worker as part of a team with Andy and Dave Evans, and who did the music. And the council were so, I think, so impressed by what you'd done and what Roger's vision of how arts and culture could help a town reimagine itself, that we were given the opportunity. There were 3 places for what they were called Arts Apprentice, and I got one of those places along with Dave Hitchin, who you saw in the film, and Edwina Alcock, who, you know, rest in peace, the wonderful singer. And we became attached then to that team, and it gave us great opportunities to create ourselves and come up with ideas and to learn in a very safe place. But we also got paid for it, so you felt valued. You felt that what you did, you know, just by having ideas and being creative was of value. And you know, we got up to some stuff that we shouldn't have got up to, and we had a great time. And because of that, that gave me personally the confidence to think, well, actually, I don't have to work in a shop all my life, or I don't have to just do this. I can do other things. Why can't I? Because I was given the opportunity that somebody trusted in my ability to be creative, and I then capitalised on that for myself. But I don't think I would have had the confidence if it wasn't for that project and getting involved in Outcasts and working with Steph and you lot, to do that, really. I don't think I would have done that.
I seem to be able to make myself heard without the, so we'll out for that. The original report in '84 was called The Arts in St Helens, and it was a bit of an irony because, as it said in the thing, for many people there were no arts in St Helens. There was not much going on at all. There was the Theatre Royal and ... What does the arts in St Helens mean for you during that period?
Well, it was, you know, after the project finished, we had to get on with being an arts team. And one of the things I was reflecting on, you know, towards the end of that project, there were a whole load of people like teachers from secondary schools that came with the kids, and of course, you know, it was just an easy sell then to get into doing the sort of stuff that we were doing afterwards for the next few years, and allowed us to become really successful. And if you go along and watch the film Tomorrow Charge, there's a little bit, you know, about that, about some of the things, you know, that we started to do. So, you know, for me, you know, in the years before that, there had been bands going. There was like a thriving, you know, sort of band scene, and there were like lots of musicians. But then, of course, after that, there were you know, that all kinds of other people, you know, as Esther and Barry were talking about then, had started to, you know, do some really sort of, you know, serious stuff. You know, one guy I was thinking about then was a guy called Dave Story, who just was hanging around with us. And he lived up the road, you know, in Ayres Finch or sort of Mossbank. And he ended up going to the Royal Academy. You know, he got like we got him the money to do an MA there, and he was like doing really sort of serious sort of visual arts work. And there somebody like Keith Sahar, you know, who came on to the youth theatre and has now got, you know, sort of, yeah, he's got an nationally internationally known like sort of youth theatre company. So there were people that were in, you know, that were in there who kids who just started coming along to things and were just doing amazing stuff. I suppose the irony for me was not long after that I stopped doing music and I stopped becoming a producer, and I became like a consumer, you know, of arts, whereas other people were just off and flourishing, you know, and doing stuff. So yeah, it's just for me that those few years afterwards, that's where, you you know, it sort of got really exciting.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I said the arts in St Helens. It's a very simple thing that I think we jumped over because we assumed it. But the kind of arts St Helens had was community arts. It wasn't about an opera company, it wasn't about ballet, it wasn't about, you know, a big exhibition centre with lots of art gallery in it and the rest of it. It was people doing arts. And Liverpool was behind all that. I mean, compared to St Helens. St Helens pushed forward and did the arts that people did. The arts that people were. And that, I think, was something that we took for granted because we started from that position, hadn't we? We started from the idea that arts was what people did, rather than went and consumed, and later on he went off consuming it, but in the meantime. So that's what we mean by the arts in St Helens. That's probably where we need to resume, if we need to resume in the town. But let's just jump back for a minute. Barry, you were a documenter of the St Helens scene for quite a long time during that period. And we've got on the website, which is part of this legacy project, which you can go to, a lot of new photographs, but there's a lot more where you came from. What were you seeing when you put your camera up to your eye? What were you seeing happening around the town?
I really don't know. I photographed a lot of the bands that were playing in the town. Sometimes kind of publicity photos, other times at the gigs. And I was fascinated, I still am fascinated with black and white photography, although I don't these days do so much. And I just took a lot of photographs. I wish I'd taken more. And it was only many years later when I kind of went through the boxes of negatives and started scanning them, I became aware of some of the things that I'd got on there, you know, and some of the gigs at the Citadel and things, some of the big name acts there. I remember scanning quite a blurry set of negatives and then suddenly realising it was My Bloody Valentine, you know, who are arguably one of the most kind of influential bands since the Beatles, really, you know, although if you've not heard of them, you won't. but they are one of those bands, sold 20,000. The Beatles, you might not have heard of those, Roger. Yeah. They were very big in Houghton. Yeah, so for me, I did, and I still do. I've got a camera with me tonight. So I just like taking photos, and I wish I'd taken more because there was a lot. I know Mike took a lot of photos too, Mr. Parker.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
At some point, we must put a book together, Mike. We must go through them all.
I'll come in and
back a second.
grab that mic in a bit.
We're in the process of pointing forwards. If a book is what's needed to reconnect with the past to make the future, then that should be on somebody's agenda somewhere. Esther, pass it back to Esther.
Any idea what it was that was the secret of its success?
Oh God, the chaos. I think it was the chaos. The fact that we'd never been done. We were trying something new, and we were all skating by the seat of our pants. And that was very exciting. It was a very exciting thing. And to be honest, looking back, for me personally, that time in St Helens and seeing the faces that here, Mike, and I know meeting you all again, you know, it was really a very creative period.
Thank you.
It just was, and there was a, you know that thing when they talk about things being in the ether, there was something happening here. And it was exciting. So yeah, I don't know what your question was. I forgot.
Well, I mean, how did it end up being as successful as it was? Was it the people? Was there any luck involved? What was it?
I think it was the people. I think at the time there is something magic.
There was the love.
Sorry?
There was the love.
The love. We'll have the love.
But you can't get a culture without a people, can you? You can't have any art, anything. You can't create without, because we are, you know, you look around us, everything you see has been thought into being by creative human beings who may not call themselves artists, but they are creative. We've created the world in which we live. And at that time, we created a very exciting place to be because it was open to possibilities. And I think that in itself is a great thing for the arts. It's a great sort of pointer to say, you know, if anything's going to save us, it's us being creative in the, you know, shit in which we live at the moment on the globe with what's happening, then we have to be creative in order to survive, really. And that, I mean that in the sense of not only, you know, everyday survival, but what's the point of surviving if we can't dance and sing and laugh? And it was fun. It was a bloody good laugh. It just was.
Nice one.
Well, we're going to have a question in a minute, just a little bit longer, and then we'll just a couple of more points. Back to Andy.
He made us all laugh.
He was always dancing.
We had a good team, actually.
Yeah. Any idea, Andy, yourself, what might be the clue to its exciting success? What do you think made it possible and probable?
Well, you know, there were no, you know, we were all fairly young, and there were no sort of egos there. You know, yeah, in the head I'm still 21, but you know, there were no real egos there. There was a willingness, or you know, we were meeting new people and we were all sort of getting on. So it didn't feel like that anybody had a point to prove about anything, you know. And there were people who were involved in it, who were like sort of in bands on the sidelines, just sort of jumped in and were helping, and it was like, you know, it was just a fun, nice atmosphere, and then we felt like partway through it. There's a bit which isn't in the film where we did a Malone's nightclub, and we put it into a nightclub, you know, with real bands, and we had like, you know, scenes from the play that were being sort of. They hadn't been fully rehearsed, but they were being done in there, and that was just mental, you know, doing that. It was just almost like action theatre, you know. It was like really sort of inspiring. I think after that, I thought, if we can do that, we can do anything.
And we did. Well, you've got the microphone, and then I'm going to start to put it out to the audience. But Esther mentioned the chaos. She said, what was it that was the secret to it? It was chaos. It was people's tolerance for chaos.
Yeah, that's
It was the idea that, yeah, it may be a bit chaotic, but that's all right. Whereas I don't think that necessarily is how it is now. But Andy, was it a very St Helens type of chaos, or was it just good old-fashioned chaos?
I don't think I've been in anything as chaotic. Not in my working life anyway, you know, like since. I mean, I've done a few airy things in work, but nothing, you know, like that. You know, like the bit that was in the church, I can't begin to tell you how mental that was, you know, because for a nanosecond...
When you knocked it down.
Yeah, there's a nanosecond as what was it, the pastor or the vicar was at the back with his arms crossed.
Well, it was actually meant to exercise.
Yeah, it was, you know, what we were doing was like a sort of an exorcism, and he just wasn't very happy about that at all, you know. And so just little snippets like that where you just think, I can't believe you got away with that, you know.
And goodwill, I think the goodwill of people, all of us, people that are here tonight as well as counsellors and people who weren't used to doing that sort of work. Like you told me stories about going to people and going, we need this, and go, oh, I'll get you that. And it was, you know, like somebody said, love, it's not a cliche, it's true. It's, you know, there was a lot of support and goodwill of people who wanted it to work. And I think...
Could you actually throw the microphone over?
Yeah, go on.
Oh, sorry.
Well, there's a microphone for you out there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, that's Esther. Yeah.
Sorry, there was a lot of goodwill, and I think on that day when it culminated in sort of the Citadel, and those marches where everybody was, through dramatic purposes, were heading towards this place. People running from places, people marching against, people marching for, and we changed the rhythm of the town for that day. There was a rhythm, there is a rhythm.
Absolutely.
And we changed the rhythm. I think that in itself was, there was a beautiful poeticness, poetry about that. There was a beautiful poetry about that, and I think that's what I meant by exciting. There was something happening that you just went, oh, I'm part of this. And I think watching the film now, even the little kids from the schools that were in the church and being, you know, you could see it in them. You could see they were engaged, and there was a vitality in them that's about living. You know, that creativity and excitement, really.
A bit back just to open it up to people, but
Yeah, people said yes when you asked them for things. There was no and no can't and no shouldn't and not possible and too expensive. Everything just happened because people said yes. That was one of the tricks to it. Anyway, about time, you audience who've been sitting in the shadows for a bit there. There is a roving microphone if anybody wants to make a comment, but equally ask a question of any of us, then now's the time to do it. Has somebody got a hand up anywhere? Yes, well, there's a few. I can't see them, so you're going to have to...
At the time, some of us who were putting alternative music events on, we were also helping people put rock groups on, Chris Coffey. We were helping Doug Batley and his crazy goth stuff. Sarah Gordon-Jones doing her alternative cabaret at the Lamb with Adrian Henry, etc. It was a very collaborative scene that Bronick Cram and John Shell were donating these lame lighting rigs that had actual switches on. You know, we were poverty stricken. We had no money for a lighting desk with faders, mixers and blenders. We were DIY in a real punk ethos, but we were all pitching in to help alternative cabaret, rock, goth, everything, and we'd help load the blasted gear in.
Through the window.
At the Lamb.
Through the window at the Lamb. I do know so.
We used to load the flats of the stage up through the stairs in the afternoon with the old blokes drinking like a pint of bitter, thinking, what the hell are these weirdos up to? Meanwhile, we've got the actual risers from the unemployment centre coming up through the window in the afternoon before the bands got there. And they'd turn up in the van and there'd be a bunch of us there, all carting their gear up the stairs. And they were narrow stairs.
You had it lucky.
Luxury.
Luxury. Somebody at the back I saw with their hand up. I can't see properly, but there's a couple of people with possible points to make and questions to ask. Hello.
All days, Roger.
I know.
I think a lot has been picked up on since I put my hand up originally before it was my time. But there was, it struck me that there were some key words what Esther was saying about. What did you say, Esther, about what made it happen?
Chaos.
Chaos, yeah. But what came to mind was about a sense and an attitude of investment, not just about money, about finances, about budgets. But then Roger went on to say more about that, and then just what this gentleman has said kind of sums it up. It was a time when we hadn't been separated into our individual, like financial, groups, economic groups, kind of thing. Where people were there was still that sense of unity. There was still multi-generational kind of sense of belonging. The town in particular, you used to see everyone sat on the slabs. Grannies, mums, everybody just sat there, and it was a buzz. It was a buzz about people being together. We've all been separated now. That sense of investment needs to come back. That sense of unity needs to come back. Real investment, not just about money, because that's where we've gone wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, council.
I can't see the trouble. There's another hand up somewhere. At the front?
Yeah.
Where? Wherever.
I just want to ask Esther a question. Is it true that you worked on Brookside?
Oh God.
I don't think it was Esther.
When Brookside was an actress, yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. You did.
I did.
I spotted you.
What did you do? Because I don't remember that bit.
You were auntie, weren't you?
I played a woman whose son was killed by Ron Dixon, so I played Shirley Moffat.
That's right. Yeah.
And my opening line was, "You killed my son."
Can I just make a point there? I don't have television, but I do know what soap opera does. And when we chose soap opera as being the medium for Houghton, we did right, because all that acting was over the top. But it was what we needed. We needed that kind of strong, you're my brother and all that stuff. Accusatory, strong, heavy voice stuff. And I have to say, one of the benefits of all this was I had such an amazing set of performers.
I think at the time as well, I
think as well.
I mean, the music was a rip-off of the Brookside tune, but I think you're right, because at that time, the ethos was, you know, particularly in Brookside, that everything was overly dramatic. You know, in one street, everything happened. Do you know what I mean? Murders, it was just everything happened every week. So in that way, Roger, I think very cleverly hit on a sort of a device that could capture people, because it was already in the psyche out there.
Yeah. Any more questions? Let's see. Everybody.
I've not finished my last question.
Right, we'll go on then. Let's see it, go on.
Did you get to, did you work with Barry Grant?
No, I don't think he did. I don't think he was. No, he wasn't in any of my scenes.
Rain Hill, isn't he?
He was in Rain Hill. When he was in Rain Hill.
Not the whole.
Next to Andrew Kay.
Well, Esther will autograph something for you if you want. Right, another question. There's one over there. I can see the hand waving.
Are any of you optimistic that the vibrancy that was obviously apparent in the 80s in St Helens will return again?
Well, I want to answer that because Kat's here at the back, and you know, it's not entirely true to say, you know, it's not, it would be a fallacy to say there's nothing has happened since, because we worked together on that, you know, the Art of Glass project a few years back, and I don't think it had the same sort of DIY sort of, and it didn't have the same intensity, but you know what, there was a load of good stuff come out of that, and there's been a load of good stuff since. It's not been quite the same, it's been different, but that's not different, isn't necessarily, you know, worse, you know, so, but, you know,
There's not enough venues, is there?
no, there isn't enough venues, you're right, yeah.
Artistic creativity, you know.
And do you know what? It is different. You know, when I walk around the town tonight, it hasn't got people walking around the town centre, you know, in the way that it did. You couldn't do a street theatre thing in the way that you did like 30 years ago, because there just wouldn't be the amount of people physically in the town that would engage in it in the same way that you could have done it then, you know. So it's just different, as you would say, different jockey, same horse, you know, or the other way around, isn't it?
Different jockey.
Yeah, that's the one, you know. We always get that wrong, you know.
I think for it to happen, it's got to come from the ground up, hasn't it? It just has to. It can't come from the top down, because they, you know, they don't trust us enough to give us the money to do what we want to do, because we don't like what they do. And we might tell them. So it's got to come from us on the ground, from community-led projects. And I think we are disconnected at the moment for lots of reasons. But I think that's got to come back, because that's what keeps us. We can't live without each other, and we tell stories, and we share our experiences of what it is to be human. And you can only do that in a room together, really. No matter how many Zoom calls we have with people, it's not the same. It's just not the same.
I've got something.
I've got something to say on that subject, but we've still got questions, so let's have them.
Can I actually just say something? This is Mike Parker, just like making a little frame and seeing people on the stage that I feel are absolutely beautiful, every single one of you.
My glasses, mate.
I want to actually say what Esther's just said. It's just like the nature of what we've done in the past has been absolutely brilliant, and I don't know how we can bring it back.
Well said, well said, well said. Well, we'll talk about bringing it back in a minute. Is there any questions over the other side? I can't see. One at the back, I think.
You know, I want to ask Andy about the music collective. How that was brilliant. The music collective was excellent, and it made the scene even better, clearly. I think there's no gigs to play anymore, but what about a format where you had a music collection, a collective online? Would that be viable?
Well, do you know what? I'm not a musician anymore, so and I don't really go, to nearly as many gigs, as I did. But I do agree with you that the collective as it was then was just incredible, and it was. And one of the unsung heroes that sat behind all this was Brian Bunny, who ran Dead Fly Studios, because there were people like that, who were in the background who kind of really made the posh word now is the ecosphere or whatever it is, the ecology that allowed all these other things to happen. And it was people like that, some of the people that Stephen and Mike mentioned before, who were like putting gigs on and not making any money out of it, not looking to do it for money, just doing it for for the love of doing it.
That's the thing. Nowadays, people are just staying at home and they won't be making any money at home. But at least if they're part of a collective, they're part of something that's rising up. They're part of something that's, music isn't going unheard. It doesn't have to be on X Factor. If other people hear their music, I think that's a good thing. So if you could have like a St Helens label or something like that, I'm just wondering if that could be done. Because there's nowhere to play anymore. There's no, the economics have crumbled the town.
I think the lady at the back though kind of hit the nail on the head earlier when she said everyone's become compartmentalised. Yeah. I think that's part. The great advantages of things like social media and the internet are also its great disadvantages, because it takes you away from being, like Esther said, in the same room with people. Yeah. And I know when I started playing, I've been playing my guitar in my bedroom for years, and on the quiet, just practicing. And I can remember seeing posters for this fella's band playing in different places, Transport Club and all the rest of it. And I can remember thinking, I want to be part of that. I want to be in that. I want to get to know these people and be, recognised and all the rest of it. And I don't know whether young people still feel that drive. I work in a people referral unit in Blackpool, and I'm constantly amazed by how little impresses them. And it's quite depressing to say that, I suppose. But I mean, for example, in the summer just gone, I bought a whole load of cheap acoustic guitars from Facebook Marketplace, and I drove over Wigan and whatever to get these guitars, and I took them into school, restrummed them all. And they've sat there for the entire year, and no kid has expressed any interest in playing the guitar, which I find is just mind-blowing, because I couldn't go a day without picking my guitar up when I was that kind of age. And I do think that the thing with young people now that I see as a teacher, it's that they don't have the same kind of hobbies and passions that perhaps we all had. I wasn't particularly great at school, but I always had really strong interest in certain things, and I think that's probably true of all of us, that there was something about acting for Esther and Andy with the bands and myself with the guitar and photography and things. There was something about it that kind of, you didn't need any encouragement because it was already there, I don't see that now. I wonder how you would approach young people today and engage them. I wonder how you do it.
I think that's a really good point, because thinking about when we were, as you've just said, when we were kids, and you think of what you have an interest, those interests were usually outside of your home and your family and your everyday ordinary existence. They were something to aspire to or to dream of. And if kids are, because of things like the internet and social media and games and stuff like that, if kids are, their interests are brought to them and they're focusing on that, then it sort of captures them. It captures them in a way that they don't need to aspire. They're pretending in themselves. They're living their dreams, if you like, because they're told the dreams are that, and they're doing that. This is just me saying this, off the top of my head, because I've only just thought of what you said. I wonder if it's something to do with that, our aspirations are given to us, and we don't want to go outside of that.
I think it should be noted as well about the Musicians Collective when it started in, what, 88 or something. The first few weeks of starting that collective, and it was Dave Evans, who's not here tonight sadly, because Dave is absolutely...
85.
80, no, it wasn't that early, Mike, it was.
81, me and Paul Wilson.
No, the Musicians Collective, I mean, though, I'm not talking about like the gigs and things.
One later in the system,
Yeah. The one that Dave kind of started, when that started, within a few weeks, we had about 120 members, because there was that many bands playing in this town. And if you wanted to do a gig, say, at Flambars, as it was at the time, the Welcome it became, or the Alfred, you had to put your name down, and you had to wait months. And it was a really prestigious thing. There was no money in it. Nobody had any money. We used to, the Musicians Collective bought equipment and used to share it around with all the different bands and things. But I remember going on a conference in Manchester with Andy and Edwina and Dave, and we were by far and away the biggest Musicians Collective in the entire country. And that wasn't because we went out looking for them, for members. We had the members just came to us, and that was within a matter of weeks of starting it. So I think there was a phenomenal level of interest in bands, music, gigs and what have you in this town. And I know, Steve, you were right there from the very beginning whilst I was still at school, I know that. But I think by that point, 88, it had really kind of reached a pinnacle. And, you know, I remember being in the Alfred and bands were travelling hundreds of miles to play there to get paid £30.
I'm living for nothing in my house.
Okay, we probably will soon outstep, won't we? I'm just going to make a point, and then I'm going to run round the panel one more time, and then we'll leave it for tonight. I just want to do a bit of an advert. This year is actually St Helens' Borough of Culture, which is that circulating honour that each of the boroughs in Merseyside gets, instituted by our Metro Mayor. And this year is St Helens Borough of Culture, and this is actually also within the project. This legacy project is sort of brought under that heading, if you like. But I've spent the winter working at the college mainly to assist in the creation of a number of things that will go into that Borough of Culture programme. And one of them has already happened. It happened on the 29th of April. And it happened in the Church Square. And it was a big event which had a procession, it had lots of performances, it had a stage with bands on it, and all that kind of thing. And the strange thing about it is that even on a Saturday, which is by many people's standards the busiest time of the year, St Helens in the centre is, as we've already said, not exactly the busiest place in the world. Even the market, even the kind of putting up of the rails and the rest of it, looks a bit miscellaneous. But on that particular day, suddenly an awful lot of people came. What I had to do was to make a play that would go around and talk to people and persuade them to come, and then a lot of them did. And one thing that struck me is a bit like if you've had your leg in plaster for some time, and when you finally take it out, you have to really stretch it to kind of get it working again. There was a strange sense of people had lost the ability to be in the same space as each other. It was an unusual experience for people to be in a crowd, particularly a crowd in that particular space. And it was well thought of that day. It found in some of its objectives, but in general, it did the thing of reminding St Helens that it was a place where getting together with other people was a bit of a buzz, as simple as that. And I do think that the answer to what Esther's talking about and what Barry's talking about, which is that this idea of being disconnected, means that really we just need to give an awful lot of people an awful lot of good excuses to get together doing stuff. It doesn't even have to be art stuff sometimes, it just needs to be rediscovering society and being social. And that could be a project that will eventually bring back the buzz for the young people, for the older people, for everybody intergenerationally. It can be the thing. And towards that end, the first thing to say is that there is going to be happening sometime in September, a Legacy Music Festival. So there will be a chance for the generations, the past, present and future musicians to come together under the auspices of the project and also Borough of Culture. Tomorrow, of course, it's Heritage Day, Heritage Festival. That will be happening at the Town Hall. You might think, oh, that's old stuff, but as I already said to you, what we're actually about with Heritage is something that will make sense from the past in the present with a view to making the future. So you should probably be there. And there's other stuff that comes under that heading as the year goes on. So there is a moment this year when we could get, I keep calling it Helenians, but people who live in St Helens, to come together to rediscover the joys of being amongst each other and the rest of it. I sincerely hope that will happen. So that's a little bit of an advert for that. There will be other chances possibly to see this film. Tomorrow's film is called Charged, and it was made a year after the Houghton project, but actually the Houghton project took a while to edit, as you pointed out, so probably they were going on roughly the same time. And that's a feature film which has got a particular pertinence, and if you want time travel, 1989 was a very strange time to be in St Helens, as you'll discover. However, I'm going to go back down the panel, and I'm going to ask them for a vivid memory of theirs. We've had quite a few already, a vivid memory from the period of Houghton, not necessarily Houghton and its making that time, that gave them the buzz. Andy, do you have a buzz moment from that period?
Yeah, there was one real buzz. It was only a little moment, but it was a real buzz moment. It was the end of the performance, the end of, we got everybody was leaving the building. We'd seen the arts minister off, Rich Lucy got off, and the people were sort of leaving, and I'd gone upstairs, and all the Rainford Trust had took on a company which is like a subsidiary of Pilks, one of Pilks' contractors, and they were all trainees who'd done the building, and of course for them it was a topping out ceremony for the building, so they were all getting smashed upstairs, up at the top. And I remember having a glass of, I wouldn't say champagne, probably pomade with Roger, and just thinking to myself, oh my God, what's just happened here, And that was a moment for me. It was like that, when you have a first drink, when you've had a real stressful 6 hours, it was that kind of weird feeling about who am I, what am I doing, where am I being, where am I going. So yeah, that was my moment.
Barry?
I'm not sure I have a particular individual memory, but the view of the bike maybe. That's the whole experience for me. It was a fascinating time really, And I remember the minister turning up in his Jag, and I think he stayed long enough for the handbrake to be applied, and then he was away, wasn't he? He wasn't there long. I have no one particular memory. I hate following you, Andy, because you're such a good public speaker.
He forgets nothing. Esther?
You used to be in a band with him as well.
When I was doing the Audra Barker speech, Church Square, it was sort of I have a dream speech. It was basically, anti-immigration, anti-gay, anti-everything. And I just caught this couple sort of cheering me on. And I just thought, oh shit. Because, obviously Dave was there as the counterpoint to go, you're talking a lot of rubbish and blah, 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 and da-da-da. But there was just a couple of shoppers just going, yeah, she's got a point. So I was just like that, oh my God. So that's anyway.
Yeah, well,
I've got many memories, but that stuck out.
Yeah, well, the actual quote was, because I think some of us were nearer to those people, somebody said, she's got my vote. So St Helens, it's a mixed bag, isn't it? It's a complicated place with pluses, minuses, yeses and nos and everything else. Anyway, you've had a big dose of it tonight. If you want to come back tomorrow and see the Charged film, we'll be delighted to see you back. Thanks for your contributions. I would simply say that we have it within us, and the people we know, to make something happen in the next couple of years that will be good. And if you think you can make any contribution to it, catch Shay at the back there, and she'll probably find a way of doing it. Thank you to everybody tonight. Thank you to Lucem as well for hosting us